Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning on this Friday, and Georgia Paxos from the Canton Palace Theater joins us. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Georgia, you've been with the Palace Theater how long now?
It's 9 years, a little over 9 years.
My goodness. Has that gone as fast for you as that seems to have gone?
Very much so. We've done a lot of improvements in the building in those 9 years, a lot of updating to the programming, lots of different things. We like to use the Palace as a multi-purpose facility. So we've added wedding ceremonies and wedding receptions, lots and lots of live events and themed movies and newer release movies and film fests and just lots of different kinds of events to bring the community in, and that's what the building is there for.
What do you see as far as community ownership to this amazing facility that we have here in Canton?
I really think it's the responsibility of the staff and the board of directors of the Palace to come up with great programming, come up with diverse programming. We have really high-end events, and then we have a lot of free events too. So we want to build the emotional connection to this building that some of the older generation in our community has to the younger generation. So we do our First Friday family movie. It's always a free movie. You come in, the kids are usually staring up at the ceiling, looking at the clouds and the stars and not really watching the movie. But it is one of the largest movie screens in Stark County. And it's just a great experience. You come in, you're taken back to 1926. You're taken back to a Spanish castle. You're in a courtyard. It's a great experience. So we really want to build that connection for the next generation so that they can feel ownership of the building and ensure its survival for years to come.
You just said the date 1926. That means you've got an anniversary coming up?
We do. This coming November 22nd, 1926 is the 90th anniversary of opening night at the Canton Palace Theater.
Do you know what was playing opening night?
It was a variety show. It was a vaudeville show because that's what the theater was built for.
Sure.
But we do have the song that the Canton Palace Theater Band, led by Banks Kennedy, played. So we will be playing that again for a midday celebration of our 90th anniversary. And then we'll be announcing on November 12th at our Dancing with the Canton Stars event a whole list of programming to celebrate the 90th anniversary. We'll be doing 9 events for 90 years between November 2016 and November 2017.
How fun. Well, we want to make sure we're at all of those.
Absolutely.
It looks so cool, and we'll talk about each one as we get going here. But let's talk for a second about going back 90 years. When we go into the Palace Theater today, it is so incredible. You couldn't build something like that anymore without spending just
yes, exactly.
So much money.
In 1926, it cost $1 million to build the Palace, and it was the most expensive theater built at that time. So when you come in and buy a movie ticket, look at your movie ticket because it still says $1 Million Palace, because that's what the Canton Palace Theater was known as. If you were to take that $1 million and bring it into 2016, you're looking at probably over $100 million. But technology has changed. But when you come into the Palace, you're really taken back. We are on the National Historic Registry. So that means anything that we do to the building has to be historically accurate to the building. All of the plaster work, all of the paint colors, all of that is historically accurate. It's the same colors that were used in 1926. The carpet that was replaced last August is a swatch of the original carpet. There's just a little difference in the pattern. I call it the swoosh, is a little bit larger. We felt that a smaller one made it look a little hard on the eyes. But the colors are the exact same, almost the exact same pattern. We really try and keep it historically accurate. But then there's also modern amenities in the Palace.
Modern technology,
Absolutely.
like the projector.
Right. Our projector is a HD digital cinema projector. Like I mentioned earlier, we have one of the largest movie screens in Stark County. We have 7.1 surround sound. So I always tell everybody, yes, we are a historic building, but we have moved into 2016 with some technological updates for sure.
And I always love the story about the air conditioner. The people used to go into the Palace Theater to watch a movie because it was like the only air conditioner in town.
Correct. Out of the 7 theaters that were in downtown Canton, the Palace was the first to have air conditioning. In 1929, it received one of 4 air conditioning units in the country. So it parts of it are still there, and they probably won't ever leave because we'd have to dig up the sidewalk to get this piece of equipment out. But when you're sitting in your seat and you look down, you'll see a vent kind of in the floor, almost like every other seat, every third seat. And that was the vent for the air conditioning. And you almost had like your own little personal air conditioner in your seat. So yeah, it was ahead of its time even in 1929.
Remind us of the size of it.
So we have 1,500 seats now. When the theater first opened, there were right around 2,400 seats. So during the different projects, seat replacements, the concession stand wasn't around in 1926, but they put one in the early 80s. We put our permanent tech booth area in the back of the center section. So we've lost a couple seats here and there, but it's a lot of seats.
Canton has been better about preservation in more recent years, but there was a time when it was really on the chopping block.
Absolutely. It came really close to being torn down. We're very thankful to some local business people. The Canton JCs got together and they went to the city and they said, we're going to try and figure this out, how to keep this building open. Because by that point, the Altman Mansion had been torn down and so many other buildings, especially right along Market, home had been torn down, and we were the last theater left in downtown Canton. So thankfully they did that, and out of that group of people, the Canton Palace Theater Association was created. So those first members of the JCs became the first members of the association and the first board of the Palace.
And what I love, too, is so many of the things that are there are original, isn't it? Talk about the organ a little bit, and the stars, and the cloud. Has you ever thought, we could do without this?
No. It's all of those components make the Palace what it is and gives you the experience that you can't find anywhere else. The Killigan organ is the original Killigan organ. We're the only theater in the country to have its original organ and still play it. So if you are a regular at the Palace, you know that we don't show movie trailers before our movies. We always do a pre-movie concert based on the availability of our organist, Jay Spencer, but he is pretty reliable and he's there pretty much all the time. He'll do a 15-minute little mini organ concert before a regular movie. During the holidays, he'll do an hour-long organ concert. He does 2 silent films a year where he does an original score to a silent film. And so we really use the organ a lot.
And let's give out a big shout out to Jay because he's a volunteer, isn't he?
Oh, yes. He volunteers all of his time. He has been a volunteer for over 25 years and just recently became a resident organist, and he does it all. He house manages, he works the bar, he works concessions, he plays the organ. Sometimes he's doing all of that in the same night, but he is amazing, and we're very, very thankful for him.
Well, let's talk about what it is about the Palace Theater that brings out that kind of dedication in volunteers, because you do see love for this place.
Absolutely. And we have about 168 volunteers. They gave over 4,000 hours of their time last fiscal year. And they're there all the time. They do the concession stand, they do the bars, they ticket take, they do box office, some of them usher. They really like to spend a lot of time. This last capital campaign project that we had, we were going to be closed for 6 weeks because we had to reroute all the plumbing to the building so we could have hot water everywhere. But in those 6 weeks, they realized that they weren't going to have anywhere to go because there's some that are there every Friday and some that are there every Saturday, and it's kind of what they do. So they got together as a group of volunteers and decided to take up the restoration of the furniture in the building. Wow. So some of the volunteers raised money for that. Some of them actually did the work to it. Some of them took a woodworking class so they would know exactly how to restore the furniture. So they're very, very dedicated, and they love the Palace, and the Palace loves them because without them, we couldn't afford to pay staff to do that. So they really help preserve the integrity of the Palace, but also help preserve it through their donation of time.
Do you still give tours?
Absolutely. We give tours Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's $5 for adults, $2.50 for students. We ask about 48 hours notice if you'd like to schedule a tour. The tour is definitely a walking tour, so you go all the way down into the dressing rooms, you go down into the basement, you go upstairs into the balcony, into the mezzanine. It's a lot of history, and we talk about what we do and how we do it and what used to play at the Palace and who's been there and who's graced the stage. And sometimes if you're lucky, you get to do a little dance on stage and you can say that you've performed at the Palace.
And I'm thinking, too, there have been kind of cleaning days that I recall. Mm-hmm. And you go into cubby holes and you find amazing things. You're pulling out movie posters from who knows when.
Oh, absolutely. When we did the Capitol project and we replaced ceilings and we replastered certain areas and redid floors and all the plumbing, we found movie tickets from the 30s. We found a popcorn box that had 10 cents on it. So that was a very long time ago. We found old programs. Yeah, just stuff that has been in the building for a really long time. And now it's part of our historical collection of stuff.
And where does that exist? Can anybody see that, or is there an archives?
We do have some stuff out on display. Mm-hmm. We do have some other parts of it preserved, just so we can keep it away from the public, so it doesn't get destroyed.
What's the most surprising thing you've found there?
I think the movie ticket. Just the style of it, and I think the price on it was 5 cents. So, like I said, that was a really long time ago. And even though our movies are typically our kids' movies in the summer are $1, our weekend movies are between $5 and $6, depending on what it is. So we're definitely much more affordable than other areas, but it was a much simpler time and a cheaper time, I guess.
It's just really like a step back in time, isn't it?
It really is.
Do you find people coming to you saying, oh, my first date was there? There seems to be a romance around it.
Absolutely. I did not grow up in the Canton area. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. And so when I started digging into some of the history and people in the community coming in and talking about their experience at the Palace. And within the first 2 weeks of me being there, we had a wedding ceremony. And so I was talking with the bride and I asked her, why the Palace? And it's a very unique space. And she said, well, it was my grandparents' first date, my parents' first date, and our first date was here. So this fits. And I said, well, absolutely it fits. So yeah, so there is definitely a romance to it. We reserve the balcony for Canton Palace Theater members. So you can sit up there for a movie, but I have heard that this is where we used to come and, maybe be a little romantic with our going steady back in the day. And so we hear some of those stories as well, which is great.
Still so much fun. It's still the best seat is that balcony. So tell people how they can become members and get to sit up in the balcony.
Membership, you can become an individual member. You can become a corporate member. We have all different levels. Individual memberships begin at $25, and that gives you access to the balcony. It gives you access to buy tickets to live shows before the general public, and it also gives you a weekly e-newsletter that comes out that tells you everything that we have going on that week and the upcoming months ahead. So you can go on our website, which is cantonpalacetheater.org, and theater is spelled Theatre. And you can become a member right online. You can give us a call on our box office, 330-454-8172, or you can stop in. Our business and box office is open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
We've got lots coming up in the month of October. Let's, real quickly before our break, let's talk about the movie themes that you've got coming up.
So October is our Scream Fest films. So in the spirit of Halloween, we have classics, we have new classics, and we end the month with our annual showing of Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is a great, fun audience participation event. So that's on October 31st at 7:30. But we kick it off tomorrow evening with Nightmare on Elm Street at 7:30. We'll also have Psycho and Birds and Night of the Living Dead and the original Frankenstein, the original Dracula, and the silent original Phantom of the Opera.
What's the date of that? I'm pretty excited about that one.
That is on Sunday, October 30th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's the silent version of Phantom of the Opera. Jay does an original score to the film, and it is fabulous.
Wow. So he'll be playing the original score that was played along with the silent movie all those years ago.
All those years ago.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And say the website one more time for people to get all those movie dates because you rattled them off.
It is www.cantonpalacetheater, Theatre.org.
Okay. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.